All right, guys. So I'm going to tell this next story of this buck. It's a cool, like, non-typical buck. He's like he's got kind of like stuff hanging all over him. He's not a big frame, but just was growing hook cheaters, stickers all over the place, little inlines. He's just kind of a cool buck. And anyways, I'm sorry for the audio. I'm driving in a truck and maybe a little bit, I don't know, I hope you can hear me. But so this story kind of starts out in one of my honey holes. Here in Idaho, you can hunt, archery season is August 30th to September 30th. And then the rifle deer season opens the 10th of August, or 10th of October, excuse me. And so I've grew up here in central Idaho, and ever since, I started hunting seriously, I've been keeping track of all these little honey holes and everything. And one of my favorite ones is the most difficult to get to. And what it is, I'll kind of give you an overview, is basically there's this big giant, 11,500 foot mountain, and that kind of faces the valley. And then just to the left of it, there's this big steep canyon that goes up behind it. And then there's another bunch of 11,000 foot peaks, 12,000 foot peaks that continue up the range. But this deep canyon goes up and kind of makes a bend and kind of comes in behind this big giant mountain. And in the back there's some big open bowls. And one of my favorite spots is it's got some springs in there. It's got some south-facing green slopes with some really green grass, which here in central Idaho is, finding those salad bowl areas is not too easy to find. And anyways, I know that there's deer in there, and there's been deer in there every time I go in there. But and then on these other 11,000, 12,000 foot peaks, they're just up the range, from that canyon. And so you can get a glimpse of the tree line of all these 12,000 foot peaks once you get back in that big bowl. And I've been up the bottom of that canyon before multiple times, and it's horrible. There's no trail. There's deadfall everywhere. The stream has washed the drainage out. It's just straight up and down. And the deadfall on the bottom. But the way that I started getting into it is on that big mountain face, just to the right, on the big face there's a kind of an access point, and you shoot straight up one of these scree shale draws and get up to the tree line, and then work your way around to the left into that big dark canyon. And once you get back in there, there's a big open, master vantage point. You can see all those bowls in the back, and then also up the valley towards all those other 12,000 foot peaks. And so what I've been doing every year is it tends to be a little bit better later. So about October 20th to the 24th, when the deer season closes, I generally take a hike up there and check it out. And I put cameras in there before early season, picked up all these bucks coming in there, but this was a later season. I think it was like the 23rd of October, and this is before 2019, those big bucks had been about 3 years. And I had, anyways, it was cool. Anyway, I got up there, got on that master vantage point, cut around that. It's a couple miles, probably 3 miles, but a couple 1,000 foot elevation gain, and went around the backside, looked in that bowl, And it was a morning. And I noticed that generally the bucks don't usually get up too much around until I don't know, 7:30 or 8 when the sun's starting to come over. And anyways, I didn't see any bucks in that bowl way back in the back, but I'm scanning the tree line all the way across, and I look up there about 4 miles up across this big draw, and then on the next big giant mountain on this 12,000 foot peak, and about halfway across it, I pick up a deer, and he's bedded in this underneath this tree. And then I pick up another deer, and anyways, I put my scope up on those, and it's probably getting about noon by now, and I look at this buck bedded under this tree, and holy smokes, he's got something going on. I mean, it looked like the tree above him was just a tree, but when his or the horns above him was a tree, but when he turned his head, everything moved, and I could tell he wasn't a giant frame, but he just had all this crap hanging on him. And man, I was so excited. I was just like, man, this is great. But I'm 4 miles from him. I can drop down in that super steep, nasty canyon and go out the bottom, and then try and hike up to him. But my truck is like back around the other mountain. So what I do, I'm burned out by this point. I mean, that's a serious effort to get into that canyon and get to that vantage point. And so I basically just commit, like just committing to a buck, committing to make it happen. I had, about 5 hours of light left. So I just hauled butt back around and just went straight to my truck, a couple miles, drove around into the bottom of that canyon, and then hiked up another about 2 miles up to this to where this buck was. And I had taken my dog with me, which was kind of a funny story. I wasn't really planning on doing like a serious hunt. I just wanted to find what was in there in that big bowl, but it turned into one. So I got my dog with me. We're hiking up there, and this time of year, at late October, we generally get a pretty good storm, like a pretty serious snowstorm. And it had snowed a little bit a few days before, but we're hiking up there, my dog and I, and I don't generally take my dog with me just for obvious reasons, but in this case, he was with me. And I turned and looked up the valley, and I could see this black, just straight jet black cloud coming at me with this. I could tell it was just a serious storm coming down the valley. And I'm thinking, okay, I got 3 or 4 hours of light left. This buck is bedded under this tree. I know where he's at right now. I don't know exactly where he's gonna be, but I mean, I'm going for this. So, and about the time I got to the tree line, this storm hit us, and it hit us hard. I mean, it was pounding that mountain so hard with snow. I mean, I couldn't see probably 30 feet in front of me. And luckily, I had marked everything on Onyx maps, and I kind of knew where I was headed. But it was brutal, just trying to get through that. I mean, I think it snowed like 6 or 8 inches in an hour on that mountain. And I'm hiking the last probably mile in it. And I finally get up to this ridge where I think he's going to be, just upwind or downwind from him. And I poke around this ridge. Well, first I tied my dog to my pack so that he wouldn't mess it up, about a mile back. I don't know, half a mile back. Tied him to my pack and told him to stay, and marked where it was at on my Onyx. hiked up there, poked over that ridge, and that buck had been gone. And I walked over to the tree he was at, and he like, I could barely see tracks. So it was earlier that he got up and moved around. But I mean, I was committed. I was ready to make it happen. And I mean, I got a dog tied up a half mile back, and the snowstorm is just pounding. But I started following these tracks. Pretty soon they started to get more fresh, and I started catching up to him. And about, I don't know, a quarter mile around these there was 2 or 3 ridges, these draws that were coming off this big mountain. I look up and I see this buck standing in the scree, in the shale, about 300 yards up above me. And he's got me pegged. I mean, he knew I was there. And at this point, the blizzard's kind of broke a little bit, so I could kind of see, but it was still snowing pretty hard. And anyways, I dropped down instantly, and I could just see this big cheater rack just everywhere. You know, just I call him just a cactus buck. And anyways, I dropped down, fired one off, hit him. I mean, he didn't go down right away, so he kind of ran out there a little bit further and popped him again. And he hit, slid down, and that was it. But when I went back to get the dog, I walked up on this snow mound where my pack had been, and I called my dog. I said, Nike. And he pops his head out of the snow. He had been laying, he hadn't moved, laid there for, I don't know, an hour. And we just got dumped on with snow. But it was such a cool experience. The next day, I left some of it up there. I packed out, I think, the 2 hind quarters and some back straps, or actually, no, I left the back straps up there, just the neck meat, I think. And anyways, we hiked down in that big deep canyon, and that was a bad choice, because that was trying to haul that buck out of that canyon was rough. But went up there the next morning, have another story where an eagle was sitting on one of my back straps and hauled it off as I was coming over the ridge to get the last bunch of meat. But oh well, that's how it goes. But it was a just beautiful, awesome experience.